Greetings.
Welcome to another podcast coming at you from the high desert of Utah. We're about 6,000 feet, I think.
Something like that. With the most epic view that we've
Ever had.
Yeah.
This episode is on human interaction.
We're going to talk about all the conversation starters that we use and how we interact with people while we're out here in the wilderness.
And why it's nice to be nice to other people.
It's strategically favorable to be a kind person. So in this town, for example, I was locking the car and a guy noticed that we were from Kansas City by our license plate, and I started talking to him. And it turns out that he is one of the people in this town that's sort of like bringing new life to it and stuff. And he invited us over for wine and showers and to do our laundry. Took him up on the wine. We did showers and laundry in town. But
the interesting thing is that he noticed our license plate because he has spent a lot of time in Kansas City.
Yeah. And just by being kind and interacting and being curious and asking him questions, he invited us to buy property in this town and everything, and it was super cool.
He seems to be the man of money in this tiny, tiny town. So that was kind of a by chance thing.
Yeah.
Not so much an example of how, just because we were nice, we got rewarded.
Well, had I not been kind to him, or just like blew him off and been like, yeah, Kansas City, peace, then the interaction would have gone differently.
But things, I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of examples of how our kindness has gotten us some pretty direct, almost rewards, you could say. The most visceral that I remember is that time that we were in the city. You were super nice to the Chipotle burrito maker. So nice that they gave you a free burrito.
But it's not like I'm trying to abuse that.
No.
It's just that I've found, like in high school and stuff, I was like pretty frustrated with a lot of things. So sometimes I was more crass than I should have been, or I would say things that needed to be said or were true, but they weren't the nicest thing in the world. But I've realized that through kindness, it just makes, if I am kind, it makes my whole experience as a human a lot easier.
That definitely is true with making friends with our neighbors.
For sure.
Like we are it's a benefit to us to be nice to our neighbors. Because then they get to know that we are not these dirty hippies living in a little trailer.
And they look out for us. We look out for them.
Right. It's kind of like an unsaid rule that when you are friends with people who live near you or who park near you, you kind of watch out for each other's stuff when you leave.
Yeah.
At least that's usually our hope to happen. Usually it happens. Sometimes not so much.
In our relationship, I think I'm kind of the...
You make the friends.
Yeah.
I wait to see what you think of the new people, and then I become friends with them. Yeah. Not that I'm rude to them, but you're just generally more outgoing than I am.
So my strategy that I've found in meeting people and interacting with people is to be confident and humble. Like, don't be arrogant. Just, like, be cool. Mm-hmm. Talk to people, and always have a smile. Ask questions and dive into what people bring up, and generally be curious.
Yeah, I think that's number one when meeting people, is talk to them about them.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes that. You'll always make friends if you talk to them about them.
And if they say something interesting, like dive into that and probe into it deeper, rather than just going off on a story about yourself.
Right.
Don't talk about yourself unless people ask. Once people realize that you're a good person, they'll often invite you into, like, as nomads into their homes, or just tell us different things, like where we could camp or what hikes we should do, or all different kinds of information that if we didn't have those interactions, we wouldn't have access to.
One of the most valuable things that these strangers offer us is showers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's kind of a vulnerable thing to offer someone.
Yeah.
Is access to your bathroom for them to get naked and take a shower in. So,
yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. But
yeah, it means a lot when people do offer us that.
So whenever we get to a new campground or a new area, I'll generally go on a walk, and it helps to have a dog so that you're not just like
walking around.
Yeah, so you're not just like some
in front
weirdo.
of people's campsites.
Yeah, But having a dog, it makes it a lot easier. So I'll go around and kind of meet people and just feel out the area, see what people are like, and if they seem like they can be trusted and all that. And even if people seem sketchy or like pack rats or methy, if you will, I'll still generally talk to them and just see what's going on. Because if you're kind to people, especially if they seem like they're down on their luck or whatever,
they won't mess with you.
right, and they really appreciate it too. And then those people always look out for you too. Another thing is your appearance is the first impression that you make, and that sucks because
We don't always look as nice as we could.
But we try to not look super haggard, you know?
We do what we can without a shower.
Right. So that's something to be mindful of. Like
if you come up smelling like an onion and looking like your hair is wet, but it's actually grease, you might make a different impression on someone.
Well, and like I have holes in most of my clothes, but I try to not wear the ones that have holes in them when I'm meeting new people and like going around the campsite or if we're going into town and stuff.
Yeah.
So that it sucks that you got to think about what you look like. But
did you throw away that pair of boxers that?
Yeah, I finally did.
Looked like a freaking G-string with all the holes in it.
They were my first pair of merino wool boxers, so I kind of had a sentimental place in my heart.
But then, because of all the holes, it was as though you were not wearing underpants.
Yeah, it was. They could have been more functional. But they never got gnarly because they had so little thread.
So your pants did instead. It was like they didn't function as underpants.
Yeah. So that's kind of our strategy in kindness. The next thing that we wanted to dive into is conversation starters. And this will probably be a fun topic.
Yeah, we thought that it's so useful to have interesting conversations because in this lifestyle, it's like when you go out to a bar, you're kind of drinking, and the point of going out to a bar is a little bit different than, say, coming out to a campfire where it's quieter, there's room to talk, so it's fun to have good questions to ask the people around, because like Barron said, it's nice to ask other people questions rather than just tell stories about yourself. And we thought that in giving you some of our favorite question ideas, you would not only come up with things to talk to other people about, but you get to know us. And this is still early in the podcast.
And these are super effective out in the wilderness because people aren't generally concerned with the normal small talk of sports and politics and stuff as much. But so these things, though, you can dive deeper into conversations in bars or wherever you are, and you'll seem more interesting, maybe.
Okay, so my first question is, what is something that is popular now that annoys you?
Something that's popular now. So like something that's in vogue?
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, the carnivore diets.
Oh, yeah. That annoys you?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of interesting.
Well, I do too, but I think like on a person-to-person basis, it's useful because it's an exclusionary diet where you're cutting out different things that you would have an allergic response to. So in like small doses, or if you have like an autoimmune disease or whatever, I think it's a super useful thing. And I think a lot of people individually could benefit from it. But if we're like espousing this as the way to go and everybody should switch to carnivore diets, ecologically speaking, it's pretty disastrous. Depending on how you're sourcing your food. Like if you're spearfishing for all your fish out like on a beach and you're eating pure carnivore, then great. But if you're just eating a bunch of like gnarly raised cows, then it's like
in styrofoam from Price Chopper.
Right. It's like you could, if you zoom out, like it may be good for you, but like there's a lot of other people and animals out here that we got to be mindful of.
Well, then on that note, I would say completely opposite spectrum, veganism is super popular and kind of annoying too. But only because, I mean, it fits into the ecological kind of area. Totally. Like it makes up for that ecologically, aside from the people who then say that they're vegan and go to the store and pick up all the vegan freezer food with tons of packaging and lots of chemicals, preservatives and things.
Right.
That isn't super ecologically friendly, but all the people on YouTube who are vegans, not all of them, but
it's more when you like identify as something. Like if you identify as a carnivore or a vegan
and tell other people how to live their lives to be more like you. That's annoying.
Yeah, I appreciate both of them for their own virtues, but it's also, yeah, it's kind of hard. And then minimalism on YouTube, where people are like, okay, these are the top 10 minimalist things you should buy. It's like, well, maybe you should not buy so many things and start there, you know? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people saying that they're, and it's especially annoying just because of how we live and stuff, but, and I appreciate the virtue in it, just like I do the carnivore diet and veganism and everything else, but at the same time, it's like, come on, man. Like, you're buying all these things and you're calling yourself a minimalist, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like, it's become sort of an in vogue thing that's a little bit obnoxious, but it's generally good. So sorry to start it out on a pessimistic note, and I hope we didn't offend anybody, but a lot of people, when they're starting a conversation, will ask, what do you do? And that kind of annoys me because it's always been a hard question for me to answer because I do a lot of things. So I like to ask people, what do you do? And pause for a second and then say for fun.
Because most people are asking it, what do you do for work?
Yeah. And when people do ask you, what do you do? Or when they ask me that, I like to clarify and be like, what do you mean? Like, what do I do for what? For money or for
You
fun?
really do. You
just
always
to kind of
say
like probe into it because it's annoying. Like, why do you only want to talk about what people do for work? And I know that that's how a lot of people like define themselves and that's their identity, but
because that's what they spend most of their time doing.
Sure. So to clarify that question,
what do you do?
What do I do for fun?
Yeah.
What do I do for fun? Reflexively, I want to respond to rock climbing, but we haven't been doing a bunch of that lately.
Mm-hmm.
Just walking with camp is one of my favorite things to do. Just going on long walks, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube. I don't know, just generally being in nature. A lot of people where we currently are in Utah, it has a lot of different like named places like canyons and
Zion and Bryce Canyon
and national parks and hikes and
really epic stuff.
Yeah, it's all super cool. But at the same time, I just want to be here and enjoy the views and get the work done like these podcasts and stuff that we've been meaning to do and just be. Like, I don't need to go accomplish everything, you know?
You keep saying, I don't want to go anywhere that has a name.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're living like we would in the city. However, we have no distraction and we live in a beautiful spot in a very tiny home with very few possessions. So it's nice to be able to keep doing our work, but from a super peaceful place.
An inspiring place.
Yeah. And in the meantime, not only just working, because that's lame, but reading and drawing and listening to podcasts, like you said, listening to music, playing music. So
conversation.
When people do go on these trips, though, like they want to go, that it's the point of the trip to go on a vacation to somewhere else. But we kind of live on a vacation.
You tick mark all the different places.
Yeah.
Like we did Zion, we did Bryce, we did this, that, and Moab, and that was kind of like that's why it was one of those things to experience Moab. But then we got there, and there were just so many people. So that's why I'm trying to find places that like don't have names that people recognize, so that there's less people and we can have our solitude. But I get that. Like when I used to on the weekends just escape down to Arkansas to go climb, I would try to climb like the hardest routes that I could find.
Because it's your only time away.
Right.
To do
so
that.
I had to like make it as epic as possible.
Yeah.
And like fit in as much epicness as I could. But now that we're out here all the time, I have less of a drive to like go conquer and come back with stories to talk about or whatever.
Yeah, it would be super cool to go see Zion, but I would rather be in this epic spot away from all the people than go be with all the people in an epic spot.
And it's not that we don't like people, but it just makes life a little bit harder and more stressful when so many people are around. Even going to like restaurants or gas stations or whatever.
Right.
So is it your turn to ask something?
What's the most useful thing that you own?
Probably the scamp.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, totally. My initial thoughts always go to my tech devices, my laptop and my iPad, because that is basically my production studio in my backpack. Everything that I need.
The scamp was the third answer that I came up with. Derek Sivers was interviewed on Tim Ferriss, and he said something to the effect of, your first answer isn't as interesting because it's so reflexive. So it's like the first thing that comes to your mind. So like once you stew on something for a second and come up with maybe your second or third answer,
Okay.
it's more interesting.
Then my third answer would be our Goal Zero batteries.
Yeah.
Freaking so useful.
And our internet, our Wi-Fi hotspot's pretty useful too.
And our BioLite headlamps.
Yeah.
Those are great.
I would say though, from a monetary perspective, like a way to make money so that I can have all the other things that I need, my computer. But I would like to transition to doing all the things on my iPad instead, just because it's...
Do you think that's gonna be the way that people move?
Yes, for sure. I
Why?
really, really do. Because with a keyboard, an external keyboard,
like,
you can do everything.
On an iPad.
Yeah. And then with pencils or like the input device, that's like it's like a pencil versus a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more intuitive and exacting and useful for drawing and everything.
Yeah.
And the iPad sort of forces you to be in one task. So when I'm on my computer is useful because I can be doing a bunch of different things at once. I can have like a bunch of programs open and be doing research and doing all those things. But on the iPad, it like silos you into different things.
Well, honestly, that's why most people would probably prefer to have a laptop, because everybody's so focused on doing
everything
multitasking.
at once. Yeah.
My thought is that I just need it to have enough processing power and RAM and like ability to...
But it does.
Yeah, you're right.
Because within...
However...
Okay. Can we just like indulge this for a second? Because
Okay.
I love this.
Okay.
So Apple is making their own processors in-house now. And their new like A12X, like Bionic processors or whatever for their iOS devices, they're super, super powerful. And how the operating system is written, it doesn't use as much RAM as a normal computer would.
Oh.
So even if you compare like Macs to PCs, Macs use far less RAM than a PC would.
Mm.
So you don't need as much like hardware behind it to do the things that you're doing.
Well, that makes sense.
And like
so then I'm missing out on the software, because the software doesn't meet the expectations of what I need.
But
for
Adobe,
video, for photo.
yeah, but Adobe is releasing their whole suite for iPad. Yeah.
Whoa.
And they announced that like 2 keynotes ago. And LumaFusion and Procreate and all
Isn't
these
there
things. But LumaFusion is there aside from like audio scrubbing. Okay, next question. Sorry for the derailment, but we should have a tech podcast.
Yeah, well, I know
days.
that we will.
I know. Okay, my turn to ask you, and then we can both answer. If you could pick 2 people that you're a mix of, who would it be?
My 2 people, I think I could think about this a little bit more, but I would say Jane Goodall. She's one of the most badass women who has been a counterculture woman for her whole life. I watched her masterclass recently, and she's just such a badass, and she has been my whole life. I remember studying her when I was in grade school and doing a project on her and dressing up as Jane Goodall with a monkey, doing some sort of class project. She's an awesome lady. And then Jenna Marbles, who I think a lot of people don't have a whole lot of respect for because she's just a YouTuber, but she has been YouTubing since, I've been watching her since she started, which is basically since the beginning of YouTube, and she is still so relevant, and she's I think she might be the most popular female YouTuber, but she hasn't taken any of that to her head. She's one of the obviously most humble people on YouTube. And her videos, even still, every single one is getting millions of views. And I just think that that's really cool that she has stayed very much down to earth, very much true to herself as she has gained a ton of popularity and fame and money. And she's still just a normal person putting out really silly videos every week.
If you hear panting and licking and everything in the background, that's Camp. He's currently laying in the sun. Just being awesome.
Who are yours?
If I could pick 2 people, my old answer was Bruce Lee and Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman's a physicist, and he's just like a fun-loving, learning, awesome dude. Bruce Lee, because he was tuned into like physical, like he was... really took care of his body, and his physical.
Ninja.
And he was like a martial artist, which I think is interesting, but I'm not super into martial arts, maybe at some point. And then his philosophy, really, above all else. And that he brought that sort of Eastern thinking into the West. I thought that was really powerful.
In really visceral ways through like Western movies, media.
Right. And his books, I think, are more powerful than his movies. All of his journal entries and everything. But now I want to switch from Richard Feynman to Steve Irwin. I
think that's very fitting.
I think I'm more Steve Irwin than
Totally.
Feynman. But so Bruce Lee and Steve Irwin.
Okay, this is my favorite question ever. This is the one question that I ask everybody. What instrument are you, and what instrument do you wish you were?
Do you want me to go first?
Sure.
I think I'm a bass guitar, just because I keep it pretty mellow and just hold the tone.
And your voice.
And my voice, yeah. My answer was always that I would like to be a saxophone, just because they're so expressive and sexy and fun and soulful. But after a recent plant medicine experience, I think I'm going to switch it to, I want to be a didgeridoo. I think didgeridoos are just incredible, and I want to learn to play one. We got to get one sometime soon.
Yeah, that would take a lot of practice to get good at a didgeridoo.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
but it would to get
So
bad
much
at
lung
it though.
strength.
To get bad at it would be pretty quick, you know.
To get bad at it, you'd start bad.
Yeah, but you can still like just make noises through it.
Yeah, true.
But to get to where you can do sort of, and it's like the circular breathing.
Mm-hmm.
What you're actually doing is it's not actually like circular breathing. Like you're not breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth at the same time. You're holding breath in your cheeks, in your mouth, and breathing that out as you breathe in through your nose. So that's like your reserve.
A didgeridoo, by the way, is one of those long, tubular...
Australian, I think, is where it came from.
Yeah, maybe. New Zealand.
And now they're being used to teach people to breathe who have sleep apnea.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, which is pretty
That's
interesting.
cool. Yeah, we should get one. I just don't know where the heck we would put it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway, we're getting a didgeridoo soon.
My instrument that I feel like I am is a piano. And that also is because I've played piano for many years of my life, but they're beautiful and really complicated. And I think that suits me well.
And they're expressive.
Yeah.
And, like, you're good at a lot of things. And you can kind of fit a piano into all kinds of music.
Yeah. I wish that I was drums. Any kind of drum. Like a... What are those little drums? There are two of them, like a...
Bongos?
Bongos. It'd be fun to be a bongo. Just loud, confident drums. That's what I wish that I was. I'm working on it.
All right, I got one. What's your favorite animal? And then a follow-up question is, what animal are you? Similar to the instruments.
I think it's because of camp, but my favorite animal right now is a fox. They're so elusive and cool and sly.
And anytime we see one, it's a magical experience.
Right, I know. Foxes are awesome. The animal that I am, which isn't the same as a spirit animal. I still haven't decided what that is.
But just to clarify.
I think I would be some sort of a bird. We thought earlier maybe a flamingo. I don't know that I am a flamingo.
Kind of hummingbird-like sometimes.
Yeah, that's nice. I think I'm a little bit
But you're not
less
like so
badass.
spazzy. Like hummingbirds are.
Yeah. I want to say a crane, but I still have some spiritual work to do before I can be a crane.
My favorite animal is probably Rhacodactylus leachianus.
You had one of those.
I had two of those
well, you
for a
still,
minute.
it's technically yours.
One of my friends in Kansas City is looking after Dina, Brett.
Her name used to be Dino.
Yeah, but then she laid an egg, so now she's Dina. But they're the largest species of gecko in the world. I've always loved reptiles and had pet geckos pretty much my whole life until we moved into this camp. So geckos have a special place in my heart, and the Rhacodactylus genus is especially interesting because they eat mostly fruits and they don't have a lot of natural predators, so they're pretty like nice to interact with. Lychees are kind of the most aggro of any of the racks, but and technically like crested geckos are not Rhacodactylus anymore.
Why?
I don't know. There's some sort of like delineation in their species, like Chahua and Leachianus and gargoyles are still classified as Rhacodactylus, I believe, but they pulled cresteds out for some reason.
I love how much of a reptile nerd you are.
Oh, and caiman lizards I think are super interesting. They're like a aquatic iguana-looking lizard that has a red head and a green body, and they eat snails. If we ever, once we have a house, I want to get a caiman lizard and a tegu again. And then which animal am I? Maybe an owl.
A bear.
A bear. Yeah, a bear for sure.
A nice bear. A black bear.
Yeah. Connor, my brother, said that he said that talking to me, he said that you're a bear, but it's chill. like you don't want to mess with me because like I'm a bear, but I'm a chill bear.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah.
Definitely not a grizzly.
No.
What do you bring with you everywhere you go, besides your phone?
Besides my phone, my Nalgene water bottle.
It's a mini Nalgene. Teeny little water bottle with a teeny spout, not one of those big ones.
Yeah.
It's a pretty useful little thing. I actually was the one who found that.
Yeah.
And then you decided it's yours.
I did. But I can keep it in my pocket, and it fits in cup holders, and it's great.
What I bring with me everywhere I go, for the most part, is our dog, Camp. Especially right now, he's struggling with some allergies, though we've kind of gotten to them right as they started, so they've been a lot better than they have been any of the years past.
For sure.
But he has to be with us so that we can check on him and make sure he hasn't scratched his eyeballs out, which he did last year.
And we often have our house with us.
Yeah, usually if we're not with if we're not at our house, yeah, we bring it with us. Unless we go to town to get groceries, which is the nice part about not having a van. We don't have to actually bring our house everywhere we go. We can leave it here, then drive the car into town to get groceries.
Yeah. Super useful. Next question. Favorite video games?
Definitely Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. But
which one?
Which one was the last one? Not the newest one.
Yeah, the one before that. I can't remember what it was called.
But
it was the one for... You played it on Mac.
PC.
Oh, it's only for PC?
I played it on PC. It was on our old computer.
Okay.
It was awesome. I love Lara Croft. She's so inspiring. But I also love Portal. I think that's a super mind puzzle game. I love puzzles. And Zelda, of course, on the Wii.
Mm-hmm.
Yoshi's Story on N64.
I want to get a Nintendo Switch just so we can play Zelda.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
What other games? You loved Donkey Kong for N64.
Oh, for sure. And Diddy Kong Racing.
Yeah.
Mario Kart. Super Mario.
So, favorite game of all time is definitely World of Warcraft. We need to probably have a podcast on that.
We do?
On World of Warcraft when Classic comes out.
What would I say? Other than the story about how you made me start playing.
Well,
and being your healer for you and all your friends.
Once you start playing Classic with us, it'll be great. We'll have a guild and everything. First video game, well, not first, but one of my earliest video games that I really loved was Roller Coaster Tycoon. I love those real-time strategy type games where you're managing a bunch of different things. Tropico is an excellent game. I learned a lot about politics and managing people and stuff from that game. What else? I don't know. I love video games.
League of Legends you've played.
League of Legends was fun, but it would just curb my desire to play World of Warcraft more than anything.
You were like professional World of Warcraft player, weren't you?
Well, I didn't get paid to do it, but I was top 15 hunters in the world. I was around, and hunter is a class in World of Warcraft in both arenas and rated battlegrounds. And I was a field marshal. So, on my server, I was, one of the baddest ass people that there were.
That is really cool, and also,
Mostly just really cool.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Do you want me to go again?
I'm all out of questions, so no,
Oh, okay.
it's all up to you.
Favorite movie?
Little Miss Sunshine has been mine for a long time. I love the story arc of that. It's like the most quintessential story with all the different elements and character development. It's great. What's yours?
And I think you like that especially because of your
Film background.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that it's an excellent movie even to a noob like myself, but
yeah.
My favorite movie of all time is probably True Romance.
Yes, I remember we watched that right after we met. I'd never heard of it. Most people haven't heard of it, but
No.
it's got so many famous actors in it, right, like at the beginning of their acting careers.
Like Samuel L. Jackson and Brad Pitt and
Mr. Robot, what's his name?
what is his name?
Ethan something?
I want to say Kiefer Sutherland, but it's not that.
Evan, whatever. Mr. Robot, whoever that is.
Yeah, I can't remember what his name is.
It's a great movie.
But it's written by Tarantino, I believe. So yeah, for sure, True Romance. Favorite TV series?
My instinct. Now I'm worried about my instincts and saying
Why? Oh, because your third answer is the best one.
Yes. Mr. Robot has been one of the... It's so awesome and relevant and really well done.
I feel like the first series, or the first...
Did you even finish watching the second season?
Yeah. The first season was better.
Yeah, for sure.
But that show, it almost is too true to my heart, and it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, but you liked it because they were using real coding and like real computer stuff.
Yeah, like they took Arduino, like when they were gonna hack the like AC unit of that server farm. They took an actual piece of hardware that exists and like showed the Python code that they had uploaded onto it, and so everything was like relatively accurate, and I appreciated that.
Instead of being a lame like sci-fi.
Yeah, instead of it being
boop,
like
boop, boop,
CSI
boop.
where it's like some nerd in front of a computer just like
Yeah.
you know. I thought that was cool. Favorite books? Are we done with TV series? Do you have any others that you want to mention?
Well, I am a pretty diehard Game of Thrones fan, but I wouldn't say it's one of the best series I've ever seen.
It's really entertaining, but it's also like kind of redundant.
And I've been dedicated from the beginning, thanks to my dad who got me into it. So I know all the characters and like I have to see it end, but I think there are other better stories and better shows.
It's like a soap opera with sex and violence.
Yeah, boobs and dragons.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that that's the reputation it got, because it really is a good, like, yeah, it's super entertaining.
It's a good story, too.
Yeah.
It's complex, but it's intentionally complex.
I hope they end it in a way that doesn't just kill off all the good people, because that's kind of what it sounds like is gonna happen, but we'll see. I'd also say The Handmaid's Tale. I read the book. I love Margaret Atwood, and it's just so beautifully executed. It's beautiful. The story is really excellent, too.
I haven't watched it yet because I think it would frustrate me.
Yeah, it probably would. Do you have any beyond, like, the ones that we watched together?
I loved Weeds. Like, the first three
few
seasons of Weeds were really fun.
Yeah, it got crazy after that.
Yeah, it just got kind of unbelievable. Dexter was pretty good. Love the Planet Earth series. Yeah. Favorite books?
The Stranger in the Woods is both of our probably favorite, right?
I don't know about favorite, but it's definitely up there. I cruised that book faster than almost any book.
It was
that
so
I've read
relevant.
in a long time.
It's about a real true story of a man who lives in the woods for 27 years undetected. He steals from a local, what is it, like a resort?
It's like a camp, like a kids camp.
So he'd go in the winter when everybody was gone for the summer, steal all the like canned food items and things he could take back with him, and he would never steal things of value like watches and
money or anything.
Yeah, things that he couldn't use because he didn't sell anything. But he would steal food and blankets and propane, things like that. Super good story.
And his desire for solitude and to get away from the sort of culture that is abundant today or resonated with me at least.
Mm-hmm.
Other books, in the context of business, the best 2 books that I've ever read were Rework by the guys at 37 Signals that made the software management program called Basecamp. And in making Basecamp, they made the software development framework called Ruby on Rails, which I've used to build several websites. And that book is excellent. It's like a bunch of short essays on how to build a business, not necessarily for exclusively growth, but with intention, and how to build a business in the kind of the new world that we live in. And then other business book is Let My People Go Surfing.
I knew you'd say that.
By Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia. If you haven't read that book, check it out. It's excellent. When I worked at Backwoods, it was an outdoor gear store for a long time. And I always thought that Patagonia was just like overpriced, and I called it Patagucci and all this. But after reading that book, their whole ethos really resonates with me.
One of the most popular companies who brings in the most revenue every year, that is the most ecologically minded, ecologically sourced clothing that you can buy on the market.
In the book, Yvon Chouinard just reminds me of talking to my grandpa. Like, he's just matter-of-fact and intelligent and has an old wisdom about him. So that one. And then, I had one more. Oh, Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari is probably the best informational book that I've ever read to give me context into where we are as a species and kind of help me find my place in all this.
It's a really good audiobook too.
Yeah. Maybe that's all the books for now on my end. What about you? Any others?
I love stories. I do love informational books, but I love stories. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Orange is the New Black is actually a really good book. It's nothing like the show. It's the real story of Piper going into jail. It's a really good book. I've got a lot of, storybooks, but I don't think they're super interesting.
We could probably do a whole podcast on our favorite books.
Yeah,
That'd
totally.
be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, favorite YouTubers?
Jenna Marbles, of course, as I've already said. I watch mostly like ASMR baking shows.
What about that girl from China, Seven Plums?
Oh my gosh. Liz, yeah, whatever her name is. It's in Chinese, but she's this badass Chinese woman who cooks in very traditional ways. She builds things. The video that I found her through was she was using bamboo to make furniture. Just by hand with no nails or anything. She's freaking awesome. I watch every single one of her videos. No talking, just her doing badass stuff outside in very traditional Chinese ways. It's she's like the female Chinese version of Joe Robinette Bushcraft, who I don't watch as much anymore, but he was somebody I watched for a while. He subscribed to me.
Especially you were watching him when we were foraging and kind of like doing backcountry.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesomeness.
He's awesome.
I have a big list of YouTubers. First, Hinny the Business is a guy that I've been watching lately. He's a producer, and he actually produced some of the tracks for Kendrick Lamar and different like badass musicians.
And he's the iPad guy, right?
Yeah,
Does
and now
everything on his iPad.
Right, he does all of his music production and everything from an iPad now, and I think that's super inspiring and like technologically advanced. So he's badass. Sailing the Vagabond is a couple that really inspires us. I think
because they're so much like us, but they're on water.
Yeah, they're sailing around the world. They just had a baby, and they document their lives similar to how we do. Wellyn, Welyn, is a really interesting, if you're a nerd and you like the game Rust, which was one of my favorite games of all time, he tells like an awesome story arc in each of his episodes about his experience in Rust. And it's super inspiring. Also, you should watch it with me sometime, even though you don't like that game. Cold Fusion, I think he's like a technologist, and he talks all about different technological innovations and stuff. Another one, School of Life, is excellent in a similar vein. Kurzengast, in a nutshell.
Who's somebody that I'm always watching? Really, like everybody I said.
You used to watch a lot more makeup channels, but not so much anymore.
Yeah, I've unsubscribed from makeup because for various reasons. I watch a ton of YouTube videos, so I could go on for days on who I watch, and I'll just spare you. Next question.
How do you measure success?
Yeah, that's my question.
Did we already say that?
No, we're going to end it with that. That's my question.
Okay. What activities do you enjoy most?
This is hard because I just think of, like, sports. What are your favorite sports?
Well, okay.
But, well, I would say swimming is one of my favorite activities ever. But not sports. I love drawing on my iPad. I love drawing on my iPad as I listen to podcasts.
Solitaire. I feel like you're playing solitaire no matter what you're doing.
No, not so much. I play solitaire when I have to, like, pay attention to mindless things, and I just, like, don't want to fully pay attention to that. So then I'll play solitaire as, like, just distracting half of my brain, you know?
Mm-hmm. Video games are one of mine. Paintballing was probably my favorite sport of all time that I ever played. Reading has become one of my favorite activities in the scamp, because when we were in normal life, anytime that I would sit down to read, it was always like I should be doing something else more productive. But now I give myself the space for that, and I really enjoy reading. I love to laugh.
Oh.
I do.
That's so nice.
Oh. And conversation, like having deep conversations with people is one of my favorite things.
You can stay out at the campfire, especially with, like, old men who have a lot of stories, all night long.
Yeah.
Whereas I go to bed, like, very early.
Well, because I stay engaged with the conversation, and I think you are engaged with the conversation to the point that it, like, spawns a thought in your head. And then you, like, chase that thought.
I know, and then I, like, lose the whole conversation because I'm just thinking about that thought. Yeah, you're so right. Let's do 2 more. You ask one, and then I'll ask the last one. Okay.
What's something that annoys you?
Oh,
we did
boy.
what we did, like, right now. Like, something that you said something
that's popular that annoys you.
Yeah, but just like generally speaking, what annoys you?
I know what yours are.
Well, I know because we talked about them.
Well,
what are yours?
The most annoying thing right now that happens is when you fart in the scamp after coming in from outside. It doesn't make any sense. Why do you do that?
I think it's because...
You get comfortable as soon as you walk in.
Yeah, like I step in and I'm comfy and like sit down or relax.
Just rip ass.
And then I fart, and I'm sorry. I've been trying to step outside. But then when I step outside, I just come back in and trail it in here, and then you get just as frustrated, so I don't know what to do. But generally my farts don't stink. And I fart so often that I try not to complain about yours, because they always smell like addicts. Other things that annoy you? Anything that you can think of?
I think general arrogance in strangers that we meet, just blatant arrogance and ego, is hard for me to work with. I just want to be on the same playing field. Like, let's just be normal people. And mostly, I think because I choose to be, mostly because I tend to choose to feel inferior, especially when people are choosing to be superior with their arrogance. So I tell myself to feel bad and feel unconfident working on that. But yeah, I just wish people with... let's not go into that.
Okay.
I know yours.
People eating loudly. Like that kind of just...
But it's not even just that obnoxious. People eating chips in, like, the next room makes you go crazy.
But if it's how you're eating it. Like, if you have just complete disregard for everyone else, and you're just eating like a freaking savage, that bothers me more than it should, for sure.
You don't like noises of...
So in the car, I don't like like when something's rattling in the trunk, I don't like that because I'm always listening in the car for different noises that could be signals of something failing.
That makes
like
sense.
Like a wheel rattling or whatever. So when things are rattling in the car, I'm always so tuned into the car that it really annoys me because I keep checking into it and I'm like, oh no, that's that thing again.
That makes sense because I don't even notice. If, like, my keys are in the side of the door, you're like, Elsa, grab those. Will you grab that?
Well, because you're not paying attention to any of that.
Dude.
Like, the car, like, we could have 3 wheels and just be dragging on the ground. And you'd be like, this is fine. I don't like people telling me what to do, like, and abuse of authority.
Yeah.
Really just
infuriates you.
Yeah.
Getting pulled over. I remember it was
Yeah.
such a nice cop in Colorado, of course, but you were like, oh, you were nervous and heated and just not okay with this cop pulling us over.
I just hate it when people jack with me, because I'm like doing my best to not be an asshole and like
and to
do
not
everything
be noticed
as well as I can. Yeah, and just stay under the radar. So when people like abuse their authority and are like get into my business, it just really frustrates me.
Like 4 strangers
Yeah.
who like 5% of the time
Not even 5% of the time.
Yeah, 4 strangers are usually awesome.
Yeah.
There was one time where they weren't, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
It's a pretty epic story.
And arrogance and ignorance really frustrates me. So when people act like they have everything figured out and they're just like the best, and they're just completely ignorant of how things actually work, that frustrates me a lot.
Well, I think that's just unfortunate because we're all in the same place of having no idea what's going on.
Yeah, actually.
So that's why I get frustrated by the arrogance, because they don't know anything more than I do.
But oftentimes I think it comes out of a place of fear. Like it manifests as arrogance or like egotistical acting, but at the same time, it's because they're fearful. A couple more things. When I can't fix a thing, like when I'm trying to fix a thing over and over again and it keeps just breaking, I know. Or when I lose things. Because I try to like really keep track of things and keep things in their place. So when I can't find something that's important, like that freaking key fob, it just drives me nuts.
That makes sense. Usually it's me losing everything, but you don't get...
Well, and I'm trying to keep track of your things for you all the time, too.
You don't get as mad at me when I lose things as you get at yourself when you lose things.
Right, because with you it's like, this is normal.
It's not... I don't do it on purpose.
Well, yeah, okay. But it's normal.
Okay, so for the last question, what is your definition of success? And then there's a follow-up question once you answer that.
Okay. My definition of success, like in people?
Yeah.
I think living ecologically, like finding balance with nature, inspiring people, and helping other people to be the best version of themselves. And honesty, and like not getting too wrapped up in your ego and like who the character that you're playing or who you are. Those, I think, signify a successful person.
For many people, it's pretty obvious that money is the beacon of success, but for me, if you have more money than the next person, it doesn't at all mean that I think that you are more successful than the other.
It's just one facet of life's games.
Yeah, it's a tool. Just as much of a tool as my laptop is. It helps us get to the next step in building our success. And that then brings us to the next question.
But money is a tool, it's not a scorekeeping mechanism.
Yeah, which is so... I wish that more people saw it that way, because I think that's where a lot of ego comes from and a lot of just unnecessary arrogance, like we just talked about, because of money, which is such a fake beacon. It doesn't mean anything.
But it's because people are fearful of losing it.
Right.
Like the more materials you have.
It's so highly regarded for for some reason, but I mean, what does your fancy car do that my happiness doesn't? I mean, does that make sense? In living this way, it's never been more real that money does not buy happiness. And truly, we've talked about how if we were granted $1 million, I don't think it would... I mean, it's hard to say you wouldn't take it, but I think our lives would be a lot more complicated if we had a lot more money. And I almost would rather not, ever.
Yeah. I think it's important for us to figure out how to live frugally and stuff, because then we have a more wholesome understanding. So then if we do come into money in the future, then we'll know how to use it and how to like take care of other people.
Right, exactly. And like use what we've learned to spend the money on getting this set up for other people.
Right.
So that question then goes into, by that measurement, who is the most successful person you know? Or people?
I think you.
No, you can't say that.
Well, I just did. And I think, like, the way that we're living by our measurement of success, we are some of the most successful people that I know.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
we've really designed our life around what we deem as important.
True. I can't think of anyone who I would rather trade places with.
Right.
Aside from maybe Camp.
Yeah, he's got it made.
Freaking princess over there.
But if we, like, zoom out to other people, like Steve Irwin, Bruce Lee, obviously.
Yeah, it's all the people who are doing good in the world, good for other people, good for the world, good for themselves. Nature.
But it's Derek Sivers, when Tim Ferriss asked him this same question on a podcast, and he said that you can't know who the most successful person is because it really depends on how they measure success for themselves. So, like, Richard Branson was his example. Like, what if Richard Branson just wanted to live a quiet life in the hills, but just spontaneously he couldn't help but just make more and more businesses? So he's just miserable in doing that. I don't know that that's the case, but you can't know who is successful without knowing how they measure success. Mm-hmm. So
I guess now everybody knows that we're successful because
by our own measurement, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people may think otherwise, but that's totally okay. To each their own.
Mm-hmm. Well, I hope that these questions were inspiring. I hope that you can take them and ask them to your favorite people or strangers in whatever circumstances you're in.
Yeah. Love y'all. Thanks for tuning in.